Part of Double P Media, doublepmedia.com.
Welcome back to Bustin' Blockbusters. There's a lot of bees in there. Don't worry about it. We use bees a lot around here. Season 1, Episode 4, The Great Wave of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power on Amazon Prime, which was written by Stephanie Folsom and the showrunners, J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, and directed once again by Wayne Chi Yip. So second appearance for him. He's also done some other things, but I just can't remember off the top of my head what he's done.
Mm-hmm. He would direct the next 2 episodes also. He directed 4.
He directed 4 episodes of this series. Excellent. Well, at least you can expect some kind of consistency in the way that they look and all of that kind of thing, or at least the vision for it. And I've liked the vision of these so far. By the way, that's Priscilla there. She is Priscilla TV on YouTube. Be sure to find that YouTube and to subscribe to the YouTube. And they are in Portuguese if you are only an English speaker, but the automatic translation of the subtitles generally works pretty well, or at least it has for me. You always get the gist of what she's saying. You definitely get the passion of what she's saying. Priscilla, welcome. Thanks for joining me once again.
Oh, thank you for having me, and I hope I ramble less this episode.
You ramble as much as you want. It's pretty common knowledge that I do nothing but ramble, and nothing ever important ever comes out of my mouth, and that's different from you. Speaking of which, you do your own version of a review of Lord of the Rings on your channel, plus you're doing appearances with other channels as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, I have this friendship with this channel, Universo 42, in Brazil. So he's based in São Paulo. We never met. So it's just like an internet friendship so far. And since the time of Game of Thrones, we used to have like live events every Saturday. So every Saturday we got together live and we would talk about. So now that he's watching Rings of Power and I'm watching Rings of Power, I'm not watching House of the Dragon, I'm watching Rings of Power, then we decided to do it again. 3 years after the last the episode that we did together. So it's being fun. So every Saturday we meet, I have wine, and actually the conversation flows better with wine. Maybe we should have more wine here.
I just have a soda, which doesn't do anything for my voice nor for my thoughts, that's for sure, or my looseness. I'm pretty rigid, but that's the way that I go. Speaking of rigid, let's rate this episode. Let's be really rigid with our ratings and add doubles to them as they do here.
It's not doubles, no, it's triples. We both have triples.
We're all doing triples this time. So triples on the double P. That's exciting. How about your rating first, Priscilla?
Okay, before I go do my rating, I just want to make sure that's like it's very high, the rating. Okay, this is the in my opinion best episode so far, but I still have some thoughts, like doubts about 2 plot lines so far, and I'm holding up because I think the story is going to have a payoff of those. Like if these 2 plot lines they don't have the payoff, then maybe I should review and put a little bit lower. But right now, it stands to 9.5 triple Bs.
9.5 triple Bs, did you say?
Yeah.
What the heck does that stand for?
Bring the baddies back. We want the villains. It's time for us to see the villains. No? We have the one that is already confirmed, already showed his lovely face to us. And we're still in this game. Who is Sauron? Where is Sauron? We want Sauron. Everybody wants Sauron. No? But good thing about this episode is like my whole feeling about Brown's village has been quite confirmed, I think. They were giving me Rosemary Babies vibes, you know? And I think now we have people there that they are not good. They're not good people. They're not good people. And I really like that. It was good to see that there are still bad people around.
It's always good to see bad people around. We don't need more
Yeah.
good people. Everybody's good. We need bad people. That's the way that goes.
It's also the first episode that did not end on a cliffhanger, so I added another half point for that.
All right, on. Okay, I can understand that. I rated it not quite as high as yours, but pretty close. And I went triples as well. I went with 9.3 triple S's out of 10.
Wow, triple S's?
Yes. Sung Sierra solicitations. When you sing to a mountain, as Disa did, that's what I'm talking about. Pleading with the mountain to free the miners who were trapped. I thought that was a beautiful presentation. First of all, I loved that whole ceremony. I love the fact that when Elrond saw the mountain actually changing form a little bit, or releasing some things to move some rocks around so those miners could get out, I thought, wow, this is really cool. What a power Disa has. And
Yeah.
overall, I thought that the story just looked beautiful. I mean, that's pretty typical for this show, but I did have a little bit of difficulty with one shot, which we can talk about, I guess, later. But
Yeah.
there was the whole Elrond and Durin thing. I love the humor in it. I love the heart of their friendship coming through once again. Although there is that little bit of mystery at the end with Durin and what the Durins, I guess I should say. And then just a really epic score at the end that kind of combined some of Galadriel's theme with the Numenor theme, and it was wonderfully inspiring kind of ending. I love the introduction of Adar. I've been looking forward to seeing Benjen Stark on screen for a little while. So
Joseph Mowley.
Yes, he was wonderful. And he didn't have much, unfortunately, but it was still a really wonderful introduction. I did actually, I hate to say this, and it probably took a couple points off. I missed not following the stranger and the Harfoots. I guess while they're just wandering around with carts, they're kind of boring. But maybe we'll get back to them at some point in the future. I can't believe that I said that. I'm such a Harfoot hater. Well, jokingly, but I really, really miss them. And I did deduct a couple of points because I thought that there were just too many conveniences for Theo. First of all, the fact that Theo waits until dark when more orcs can come out before he tries to escape. That seemed really strange. I mean, maybe he thought he could hide better from them, but there would be more of them out than during the daylight. There was also, it didn't seem like when he first went into town that the orcs had any problem with the daylight. Yet at the end, they can't beat that daylight. So I don't know if it was cloudy and if it was just because it, whatever produced a little bit of clouds for them to be able to work a little better in the daylight at first. But it all just seemed a little convenient that the clearing happened to be right, right at the time when the sun was coming up. Maybe the magic has a plan, but in my case, or the island has a plan, or whatever has a plan. I just felt it was a little bit too convenient. So that was the only really kind of the thing that I really got nitpicky about. That's not much. So, yeah.
But the thing about the sun and the orcs, I don't know, maybe Theo doesn't know it. He doesn't seem like some observant person or a person that would pay attention to what his mother would say. Orcs, they don't like the sun. So I maybe he missed the lesson. Maybe.
Yeah, I think the bigger problem that I had was actually with the clouds themselves, because we saw them appearing, and naturally the orcs could be there, but the shots were too bright.
Okay.
During the daytime. And so it didn't seem like there were clouds there at all. And that's one of the problems that I had, was the fact that here are these orcs standing out here, and it just seemed too much daylight for them to be able to withstand. Now, the ending was nice and dramatic, where they run out into the field and they're going to make their last stand, and then the orcs can't come out because there's a bright sun shining on them. But I don't know, the scenes where Theo was out in the open and the orcs were out and running around just seemed a little bit too bright to me, and that's where I they should have done some color grading and darkened those down a little bit, and I would have been better with it. But again, that's being very nitpicky. So
yeah, but we can. We can be.
That's our job, is to be nitpicky. But once again, as we like to say around here on the Double P, who cares what we think? We care what you think. So please tell us how you felt about this episode, season 1, episode 4, The Great Wave, named for the basically the very beginning. At any rate, we want to hear from you. So tweet to @Blockbuster on Twitter. Please send emails to mattsaudioblog@gmail.com, mattsaudioblog@gmail.com, or you can leave comments on the website, mattsaudioblog.com. That's MATTS audioblog.com. You can also leave comments on the Double P YouTubes. This is where you find the videos, is with Double P Media. We want to tell you all about them too, because if you want to go over our heads and tell the bosses to cancel us or something like that, feel free. We don't want you to, but if you feel you must, we need to inform you that you can do so by tweeting to @double, the letters PHQ. That stands for Podcast Headquarters, Double Podcast Headquarters. You can also find them on Facebook, facebook.com/double, the letters PHQ. You can find them that same way on Instagram as well, double, the letters PHQ. And if you want to visit their website, that's where their handles change a little bit. They actually go to Double P Media. So that's the word double, the letter P, the word media.com. That's also how you find the YouTube, youtube.com/the word double, the letter P, the word media. Please subscribe today. Bubba has gotten lots of hits on some of his podcasts, not so many hits on some other ones. And we need him to have some consistency, because he needs some consistent money coming into his pocket. That 2 or 3 cents can really go a long way towards paying that $8,000 a month mortgage that he has for the mansion that he owns, thinking that he was going to get rich on YouTube. So,
oh my God. Okay. Yeah. Please help him.
Help him by subscribing.
Help him.
Yeah. Don't help us. Help him. You can help us by subscribing to the podcast, by sharing it with your friends. Please, if you have friends that are into the Lord of the Rings and you like the way that we're covering the show, please share it with your friends and let them know that we're out here either in the podcast audio form or on YouTube. We'd really love it if you would do so.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready for me to do my little spiel on the music, Priscilla?
Yes.
All right. We are finally getting around to something that I've been promising for the last 2 weeks. We are finally getting around to talking about the Dwarf theme, and we'll be back with episode recaps right after that. If you don't like talking about music, skip ahead about 11 minutes. You'll be good. Today we're talking all about the Dwarf theme. I love this theme. I loved its introduction in the first episode, but I haven't had a chance to talk about it until now. And since it did appear in this particular episode, it seems appropriate to talk about it now. We're going to do a full breakdown of the main section of the theme, not the bridge. The bridge is different, though it does appear in this episode. It appears at a very interesting place. It is showing up as the father and the son are face to face, and King Durin says, "Forever I am with you." It's a really beautiful bridge, and I do hope to break it down sometime in the future, because it comes back around to the main melody, and the way that it does so is really wonderful, with this hanging 5 chord that feels inevitable to go back to the 1, and I totally love it. I'm rambling here. Let's move on to talking about this. Oh, wait, except I do want to also compliment Bear McCreary for an amazing musical job tying the goodbye to Galadriel with the leaves and everything in Numenor. And so you have the Galadriel theme, a wonderful version of it, morphing into a wonderful version of the Numenor theme. We've talked about both of those before, so there's no need to break that down. But just the way that those were used, there were some different chords placed under Galadriel's melody. There were some wonderful, powerful projections of the Numenor theme as everybody's raising their hand and volunteering to serve. So I loved all of that. Okay, to the part that you actually wanted me to talk about, or the part that I actually wanted to talk about, and that is the dwarf theme. Something that Bear is doing, which is not unlike Lorne Balfe, who's another composer that I have covered for his Dark Materials and The Crown, is he likes to give his themes a duplicity, meaning that he has a motive that works in support of the melody that can also be used independently, or he can just use the melody itself independently and put different harmonies underneath it or with it to give emotional context. All good composers do this, actually. It's not just Lorne Balfe and Bear McCreary. But if you have a duplicity, then you have a whole way that you can reference character or place or whatever and use other methods to give it emotional context. And that's really interesting what happens with this particular episode as well. Before we talk about how it's applied in this episode, though, let's talk about how it works. And as I said, there's a motive that supports the melody, and then there's the melody itself. This is what I call the motive, the supporting motive. It's a very low, it's very staccato, and it in the main presentation, which you can find on the season 1 official soundtrack, you can find that on Spotify or anywhere. The track is called Khazad-dum. I believe it's the 3rd track. You can really hear it being projected, this motive, with very short jabs of strings. These very short dun, 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 dun. Well, what's the point of me trying to sing it to you when it can just be played on the piano? This is what I'm talking about. So that motive is overall part of the theme. It's combined, creates the main theme, but it can also be used separately. And it was used separately in this particular episode as well. If you go to the around 57:35 in the episode, as Durin and his father are talking about Linden, you can hear the motive being played, but there's no other part of the melody being played. The chords are different. And so while it represents the dwarves and Khazad-dum and Durin themselves, this way different chords can be applied to it to add emotional context. Now, the interesting thing about this particular motive is the way that it works with the melody as well. And when you hear it, because there are a lot of things that are long and short in terms of the notes don't quite fill the spaces to the next note sometimes, we call that staccato. And staccato represents generally a kind of general roughness or an aloofness or literally a separation. And the dwarf culture is naturally separate. And so when you heard all those spaces between the notes of the motive, it doesn't fill all the way to the next note being played. That's what I'm talking about in terms of staccato. And that's what that typically represents musically, is a separation. Not only are the notes separated, but it gives you the impression of separation. And that's what this dwarf culture is doing, separately from the elves, separately from everybody else in Middle-earth. So I love that. And the way the melody goes on top of it, it is notes that hold on a little longer, but in some places they're shorter as well. So working together, they sound like this. And that's the first phrase of the melody. A lot of songs are written in what we call AABA form, which means that you have an A section, like I just played you, and then most of that section is repeated, but sometimes the ending is changed a little bit. It's like if you were ever in music class or whatever, you would see a song go through, and you'd have your notes to play, and then you would see a repeat sign, and it would take you back to where you're playing that part of the melody again, but it has a first ending on the top of it, and then the next time that the music goes by, you have to skip over that first ending part to go to the second ending part. They're essentially the same section. They just have different endings. And that's what happens in an AABA form. So the second A resolves where the first one kind of left it hanging, so you would have to go back and repeat. The second one resolves to give you a clear definition of the end of the A section, like this. So those are the main sections. The B section is the bridge part that I discussed earlier. We're not going to cover that here today, even though, once again, I will say 5648, around there, when King Durin says to Prince Durin, "Forever I am with you," and they are face to face. That's where that bridge begins. So that would be the B section. And then you usually have another A section, which is typically the same as the second phrase of the A, like I just played you on the piano. Now, in this particular episode, again, Bear uses these kind of things independently. For instance, around a little before the 32-minute mark, Durin asks Elrond to swear to the mountain. You hear just the melody of the A section being played there. There's no real rhythm to it. I mean, the melody is played in its rhythm, but you don't have the motive accompanying it. And that's when Durin puts his hand on the rock and says, "Swear to the mountain that you'll never tell anybody about this." That is the part where Elrond then takes the oath. But the important part is that you hear the melody there. Now, we do hear the melody again later on in the episode, but we also hear the motive independent of the episode. Just like I said, at around 57:35, as the Durins are discussing snooping around Linden, you hear just the motive by itself, and all different kinds of chord colors or all different kinds of harmonies being applied over the top of it, which creates a sense of, kind of not really mystery, not even really mischievousness, but it's still something that indicates that, the dwarves are suspicious. And the staccato of that motive actually makes it helps you to understand that the dwarves are still thinking independently of all these other things that are going on. Now, one thing that is interesting is that the melody is then added to that at about the 58:02 mark. Somewhere in there, the melody creeps in and works with the motive, and you get the full dwarf theme, not presented in a grand way or anything, but just enough so that you know that this is the full Khazad-dum theme. And I think that that's all I have for this particular episode. I do want to say this. The timbres are very important also. One of the things that I find really interesting is the association that we have of mining and being underground as being associated with a male voice. And part of that's because over time, somebody came up with this idea a long time ago, and it's just carried through. And so now our brains are kind of conditioned as we see films, as we see whatever, to think of it that way. But here the timbre is really of the voices is really deep and guttural, and almost kind of reminds me of that Tibetan monk thing. Even though it's not like low droning, it's still used in that kind of timbre of voice, that kind of projection of the voice. And that really evokes that sense of this culture that lives underground, that is predominantly, I don't want to say, obviously we see Disa being very wonderful in this episode, so I don't want to say that it's male dominated, but it seems to be male oriented, as goes with the stories of even the dwarf women have beards that Gimli told us and everything, and things that we're seeing in these episodes as well. So that's why that male voice is so important. I wish that I spoke dwarf so that I could tell you what those lyrics mean. but most of the pronunciations I can't even get. I'm sure that if you scour the internet, you can find that on your own. You don't need my help to find out what those lyrics that are being sung mean. So please feel free to do that for yourself. Now, that's all I have. And we're going to go back to discuss in this episode. Our recap is next. So we're going to start off with Numenor, which had an epic beginning and an epic ending. And first of all, we see that Muriel is having this dream that basically starts off with the Whitney Houston song, "I believe in the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way." And then it ends with a huge tidal wave. So that's kind of the extremes of happiness and sadness all at the beginning. I thought that was pretty epic looking, the way that the town was getting destroyed by the wave and everything like that. So that was a surprise that we would see that people are having visions of this long before it happens. Did you like the dream? What did you think of it?
Yes, I like the dream. I like that you had the impression that she was dreaming. No?
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't know that she was dreaming. But once the wave came, you understood exactly what was happening. So I like that. I cannot say much because I haven't watched many of those like movies. There's like um, disaster movies,
Right.
but
Right.
it looked nice. The disaster itself looked nice. There is a big wave coming, and the way it destroys the palace. I would be scared. I'm not sure if she was scared that much. Maybe this is a kind of a dream that she already had it. That was my thought, because she didn't look very
disturbed by it. Right.
Yeah, she looked distraught, but not very scared. So I think it's a dream that she already had.
Yeah, I was under the impression that she was inferring to Galadriel when she let her see the Palantir. I was under the impression that she was telling Galadriel that this is basically the kind of vision that she had when she first touched it a long time ago. So now the dreams are just reiterating what she saw in that first Palantir vision. So I agree
and that's
with
exactly how dreams work. Now you see something and it stays in your subconscious, and then you dream sometimes about it. Yeah,
I would hope so. Or maybe sometimes in my cases, I would hope not. At any rate, Halbrand's victim, who he beat up, not the one that he did the double R, the radicalized radius to, but the other one that he punched out. He's raising some cane in the square about the elf being there and the queen. And Isildur's sister Eärien is the one who sees this. Meanwhile, the chancellor is teaching his son Kemen how to shake hands in the market, but he ended up coming in and calms the crowd. Actually, gets them riled up behind the cause of the Numenorians and how men are great and all of this stuff. But he also helps his cause by buying a round of drinks for everybody. And shaking hands and kissing babies. He's not politically ambitious at all. But this gives Kim a chance to make a move on Eärien. But evidently she has plans. And no, I mean literally. Evidently she has to do actual plans as an apprentice. So I want to ask you, Priscilla, what did you think of this chancellor? I'm going to say his name wrong again, so you'll have to correct me. Pharazôn?
Pharazôn, yeah.
Okay.
Well, he's a sleazeball, right?
Yeah, he's a political
sleazy. Yeah, he's pretty sleazy. It's pretty obvious that he is the leader of this faction against against an alliance with the elves, and it's like it goes parallel with canon. No, it's not exactly like in canon because obviously we don't have all the details, so they're filling in a lot of what is happening. And by the end of the episode, you kind of have an idea where his plans, that he's capable of adapting. No, he has a
Right.
plan. He has
That's what I
obviously
was
he
gonna
has a
say.
plan.
He's switching sides all the time. Just wherever the public's willing to go, it seems like that's where he wants to be because he clearly wants power for himself.
Yeah,
What I'm getting.
no, I think his plan is pretty more straightforward, but he's capable of adapting. No? Like in the end of the episode, like Muriel throws him like a curveball, as you say.
Mm-hmm.
And he adapts pretty well. No? He doesn't create problems, but and this is something that I keep thinking about the series is that people there, like they are left and right, they are making these decisions based on their like rationality. Not some decisions are very good now with the information they have. They manage to make the decisions very well, but it doesn't matter because the end is going to be one and only. And in this case, Muriel made a decision, was a good decision, but Farazan has plans and he's not going to stop it. It's obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the true tell will be if this chancellor ends up on Middle Earth with the rest of them, then I'll believe that he's really behind this cause. But until then, I am only believing that he's doing this, hoping that she said that she's going to go to Middle Earth with Galadriel. So he's hoping that he gets to remain behind and act as the king or act as the ruler. That's what I'm thinking that he's thinking.
I think it's his end game is with Miriel or without Miriel, he will have the power.
Yeah.
He kind of has the power already behind the scenes, but without Miriel there, who is to say that he cannot have the power officially too? No?
In the cause, after all of this, Galadriel is actually getting a chance. And this is what this big stir is about. Galadriel is getting a chance to make her case for her cause to go to Middle Earth and to fight Sauron, fight Sauron, all of this stuff. She's making this case to the Queen. During the course of that conversation, we find out that Elendil is a runic, I believe is what they call it, which basically is a petty lord. A runic petty lord, or he's from the runic land and he's a petty lord of that land or whatever. So that was interesting that he has a little bit of nobility in him in some way, even if it is petty. Galadriel's cause or for doing this reforging of an alliance is summarily dismissed. She is dismissed dismissively, which is the double D. And then Galadriel throws a fit, which gets her own cell. She ends up in a cell right next to Halbrand, who gets to laugh at her and say, "Told you so." And then we go to the boats. I guess that boat sets in CGI water extensions, whether you have a volume or not, they're just hard to do. But I don't think that they're nearly as hard as it is for Isildur to be able to ignore the whispers that are coming from the Western Shore, because it gets him into trouble again. It's another double S, a ship shenanigan, and it gets Isildur shunned from the Sea Guard. So there's a whole bunch of S's in there. I think 5 of them, if you want to do the counting, as well as 2 of his friends who get charged with the same problem, all because he was busy listening to seductive whispers instead of figuring out how to pull the rope and not getting distracted. This time, the ship shenanigan is his fault, and his friend Valandil has basically excommunicated him over it. He's done with him. And later, his sister runs across Kimmin again, and I mean, she literally runs across him. She kind of runs over him nearly. But he doesn't seem to care that he's soaked because he's just wanting to be flirty. And what do you think of that? Why are we getting this relationship? Why is it important? Is the Chancellor manipulating his son to manipulate her, to manipulate Elendil? Is that what you think's going on?
Well, I'm not sure. Like the chancellor, he seems to be very good at knowing people. Like his son says that he knows all their names. He shakes all the hands. So it's possible that he knows already that she is Elendil's daughter, and Elendil is getting some sort of status with the queen now. He's getting like some sort of relationship already. So. But what I think it's going on, it's basically like there is going to be a like like the family will be apart, will grow apart politically speaking, no? Because
Okay.
this guy Kamen is in the faction of the anti-elves, and Elendil is one of the faithful.
Okay.
We see that Isildur is one of the faithful too. He wants to be, and their brother Anarion is also one of the faithful. So it's possible that they are setting up just this like family breaking apart over politics, and in this case also the relationship, which I'm not sure if it's really completely organic from the part of Ken, but he seems pretty insistent in being
Okay.
with Arian. So
Yeah. Excellent. Well, as we go back to the Rock, uh, as we go back to the Numenorian penitentiary, Halbrand is offering advice while Galadriel is just trying to run into walls by pacing back and forth. And, his advice is kind of interesting. He says, find what your opponent fears and give them the means to master it so that you can master them. To me, this and I'm sorry, we all know the lore of the rings and what have you here. Hopefully, if you don't know the lore of the rings, Sauron creates these rings for elves and dwarves and men, and he does so so that he can use the one ring that he forges for himself to control them all. And when I read these words, it seemed awfully strangely similar to what the whole purpose of the rings are.
yes, yeah,
You give the opponents the rings because they fear, and which gives them the means to master it, making them think that they're masters of their own destiny with these rings
yes,
again, so that then you can master them, which sounds an awful lot like what Sauron was doing in terms of his whole sham with the rings. I
yeah.
don't know if there's anything to actually make of that, but I just wanted to bring that up. Did you get any of that kind of feeling from Halbrand as all, or did you just? It's actually really good advice for Galadriel, but
Yeah.
I mean, did you read anything into it other than that?
Well, the thing is, like, people are like, "Oh, Galadriel is like 5,000 years old. She should know these things already." But I mean, if you read the Silmarillion, you know that elves they do things that they should not be doing all the time. No,
Oh,
all the time. So you would think, and it's one of the points that it's made over and over and over, that the men they have like smaller lifespans and they accomplish a lot in the smaller lifespans. They don't have the luxury not to learn from their mistakes, and that elves, because they live so long, they get really stuck sometimes. So I don't think the Galadriel's characterization so far is that off the mark for what she would do or she would be in this context of like nobody is believing her, because a point that like the critics of her character like are making they ignore is that basically she's right. Sauron is back. She's the only one who has been right the whole time. So when she comes to the cell and Halbrand is there, and Halbrand obviously knows exactly what happened, because Galadriel, once again, she had an opportunity and she squandered because she spoke out of turn, she spoke too much or whatever, got frustrated and lashed out. When he gives his advice, like knowing how the story will progress, I can only think two options. No? One, the great option, he is Sauron disguised.
okay.
No, this is like something that Sauron would advise someone.
Okay.
The second is like
second.
more ironic and I think it is what it is that Halbrand is a man who has lived and who has made a lot of mistakes, and he has learned, and he has this blood like of the kings, no, of the Southlands, with this connection to the dark side. So he knows the ways of manipulation. He knows everything that is to know, and his advice is like for her to find some sort of weakness, and instead of exploiting this weakness directly, to actually help this person to overcome this weakness, gain trust, and so it would be ironic if he knows that this is possible to do this kind of manipulations, but then when it comes to the time that he actually is a king and Sauron is there and Sauron does the manipulation with him, he doesn't see it. So
right. Yeah, that would be interesting.
So yeah, so he was like, okay, I have an agreement with Sauron, and he doesn't see the agreement for what it is, Sauron manipulating him. So I can read both ways. I would prefer the second. Like, I would prefer if he's not Sauron, but he's screaming Sauron at this point. No.
I wonder if this opens up the possibility that Halbrand doesn't really figure into the history of any of this at all in the long run. That he was, part of a line of kings, but he he doesn't become one of the 9 ring bearers. He doesn't become anybody that's historically important, except for he'll be like a hero or something like that, but maybe not necessarily that important historically. Just put it that way, or they'll sing his praises or whatever. I don't know. I'm just taking stabs in the dark here. But at any rate, Galadriel, first of all, she figures out that the one thing that Muriel does not want is for Galadriel to talk to her dad, who is still alive and in the tower. Then she kind of takes Halbrand's advice and gives those elves a chance to cuff her up and takes him over and escapes. Which is great. I love that little sequence, how much of a sucker those Numenorian guards were. And that was fun. They end up in their own cell. Now, outside, Eärien has gone on the date, but then she finds Isildur, who is a double eye. He's isolated Isildur. And she asked him some questions like, where's your uniform? Aren't you in the boat? What's going on here? So Isildur has to tell her that he's been kicked out, and that he feels guilty for getting his friends kicked out. And at the same time that this is happening, evidently the guards are coming through looking for Galadriel. She's on the run. She's on the loose, and everybody looks except for the one place where she would probably be pretty obvious, which is climbing up the wall of a very large tower. So that she can get inside to see Muriel's dad, because why do you want to use stairs where you have to go through other guards and all that kind of stuff when you can just climb up the outside of the wall, come in. And when she gets there, she thinks she's going to get a chance to talk to him, but she finds out that he is a failing father, that's a double F, and that Muriel is there with him, attending to him. Now, evidently, according to the credits, this guy's name is Tar Palantir's name, or his name is Tar Palantir. But the thing that is interesting is that we know the Palantiri as these seeing stones. So is the name connected for any reason? Because I'm not aware of this kind of lore, or did the showrunners just kind of make it connected?
No, it's canon. Like the kings of Numenor, they take like some names that should mean something.
Okay.
And for some time, they would take the names in Kenya, which was the language in Valinor, of the Valar and of the Kendi of the elves. Once they started turning away from the Valar and the elves, they started using their own language to name themselves. Palantir, the Miriel's father, he breaks with this tradition. He tries to go back to the old ways, as she said, and he takes a name in Kenya. And this name is supposedly it's to indicate that he has foresight, basically.
Scylla knows more than you do. Okay. So Galadriel ends up getting a kind of an explanation from Muriel as to why she's being rejected and all of this stuff. And they end up at one of the Seeing Stones, the Palantiri. We're told that the other 6 are currently lost.
Or hidden.
Or hidden. Okay.
Meaning she doesn't know where they are. Yeah.
So we know that one of these stones actually ends up in Gondor. Is this the stone? Is this the Seeing Stone that ends up in Gondor? Do you think?
I would say if they are going, because they went to the trouble of mentioning there are 7 of those, explaining what they are a little bit, and even if you notice, Miriel says that her father came into possession when he was crowned, so meaning they didn't have that one before, so it was something that it came to her father, right? Okay. So I think they're going to follow canon, so they are going to bring to Middle Earth some stones.
Okay.
Was the Numenorians that like leave the island? No? They take a lot of the treasures of Numenor with them. They take Narsil, which I think we saw Narsil this episode.
Okay.
And they take Palantir also. Right. And then like they get scattered in Middle Earth too.
Okay. All right. Well, she shows Galadriel this Palantiri and tells her to, touch it, take a look at what you got. And she basically has her own vision of the same dream that Muriel did. It's just that it's her in the vision instead of Muriel. And Muriel explains to Galadriel that she saw Galadriel in her vision, which we did not see as part of that dream, but evidently the first time that she ever saw it, Galadriel was part of it. And so that is why Muriel fears this elf so much.
Yes.
Now, the thing that I don't understand about this, I keep coming back to the Palantiri here, and I keep asking you questions, and I'm sorry to pester you with these, is that the way I understood it and again, this is in Peter Jackson's movies, so they don't have to be a direct interpretation of canon, although I feel like that they tried to do as well as they could for some of it. In those terms, when the Palantiris are used, it seems to be more almost like a communication in the present, like when is it Merry? No, is it Merry or Pippin that holds one of the stones? It's when Sauron sees him, right? Or how Gondor's in Gondor, Boromir's father says that he has been able to see what's been going on because of the Seeing Stone. So that seems very present. But here, it seems like we have a prophecy or a vision of the future. Is that normal for these Palantiri, or do they just show you whatever they want in the moment, or is this abnormal for a Palantiri to show somebody a vision of future?
Well, the first use is for communication. There was like a Palantir in the western part of Numenor that they could see until Toirzea, which is the first island in Valinor. They could do that. That's the first part, but in the books, like it said, like not only the trilogy, but also like canonically that you can see through space and time.
Okay.
But like there is no really way to say if it's time would be like the past. You can revisit a moment. Or if it's the future. And if I remember correctly, like with Denethor, Boromir's father, I think Sauron keeps sending him kind of visions of like the troops in Mordor already, which it didn't happen before. So if you see something like without the context, now you can reach some like conclusions that might lead you astray. So that's what Galadriel says. I know that these stones that they not always show you what would happen. They show you something, So
Right.
But Miriam said, no, this is going to happen. This is already happening because you're here.
Yes, right. Well, I mean, Muriel does have the advantage of a little bit of extra context in the fact that a giant wave is coming. The Great Wave itself seems to be coming, and she knows that that hasn't happened yet. Although it could be metaphoric, it could just be metaphor for evil, right? And I think that's the way Galadriel's kind of interpreting it.
No, I don't think anybody's interpreting as a metaphor. And I have to say, I give kudos to Miriel for sticking around to find out what will happen. Because if I had a vision of a wave coming to me, I don't know. I wouldn't be there. Sorry.
Okay.
Bye.
Well, I would run too, but I would take my hand off the Palantir immediately. But
yeah, she's a better person than us.
Yeah. She's brave. She's brave. Nonetheless, Muriel is stubborn, and she says, "Nope, Galadriel, you got to go."
No, come on, she's not stubborn. She knows she doesn't have the political power to back Galadriel. Let's be honest here.
Okay, well, she knows she's in trouble politically, but that's where the way she's always been stubborn. The way I've read this is the fact that no matter how much she might want to or not want to help the elves, she just really knows that she can't. However, when they start to send Galadriel away, the great tree, the white tree of Numenor, great tree of Numenor, starts shedding leaves like a Texas live oak in May, which means that everything just comes off all at once. It seems like almost, and this disturbs Muriel to the point, and I don't know how. I guess it's the position of the palace or whatever, but it just seems like there's leaves everywhere. Way more leaves than that tree could possibly have. It must be growing leaves as fast as it's shedding them, because I mean that's just too many leaves going all over the place. So that was another thing that it was just a little nitpicky for me. But because Muriel sees this, she pledges herself and Numenor to Galadriel's cause. They bring her back into the fold. Everybody's asking for service. Elendil's back and asking for people to volunteer. And of course, his son raises his hand and says, I will, just like his friends volunteer. Everybody's raising hands, a whole bunch of extras raising their hands, and everyone else is watching. Halbrand has been freed, by the way. He's just kind of walking around. I don't know if that means whether he's going to volunteer or not himself, but he's just kind of walking around as all of this happens. And everybody's watching as these people volunteer, including Galadriel. And that kind of concludes that Numenor storyline. Any other thoughts about this whole storyline? Are there any points that you want to bring up before we move on to dwarves and elves?
Well, like Miriel, she says about the prophecy, I think in episode 3, that if the tree started shedding, like the leaves, that like the faithful believe that something bad will happen now. And this is like backed by the canon, which is like her father had a prophecy about the tree also, that the line of the kings of Numenor would end once the tree starts shedding the leaves. So this connects to the canon. Okay. And my interpretation was like when she sends Galadriel away, she thinks she's like sending the cause of the Valar's displeasure. She has like an idea that the Valar gave. She has this notion, which is of course correct, that the Valar gave them, the Numenorians, that island as a gift in recognition to their services in fighting Morgoth in the First Age. No? There was no Numenorians there, but their ancestors, of course. And that the Valar could very well take this gift back, because Numenor is giving their backs to the Valar. So she has this connection, and she sees Galadriel's arrival as the first sign that this is happening. So when Galadriel is leaving, and the tree starts shedding the leaves, she thinks, I think she concludes, and that's why she changed her mind, that it's the other way around. It's like her sending Galadriel away is what signals to the Valar that Numenor is not honoring the alliance. So that's why she brings Galadriel back, and we don't see behind the curtain. But Pharazôn, obviously, he has his plans, and since Miriel is the one who is like using the very small political capital that she has to back up this, and the way she frames it is exactly like, okay, we got this island from for the Valar because we fought the war, but the enemy might not be vanquished. We need to end this, and I need to see if this is true. So I am myself going, and she doesn't even take soldiers. She asks for volunteers. So it's you have this sense that this is an extra thing that she's saying. Okay, I'm just going to see what is going on there. We are going to fight. It's not going to, it's an alliance for now, basically.
Right.
But that may be, and this goes back to my impression, that's like she's like the decision is right, is correct. She's trying to minimize the political impact of this decision by framing as a volunteer expedition of sorts, and reminding them of their alliance with the Valar. But she's opening her flanks to Pharazôn's increasing influence in Numenor. So she might not have a kingdom to come back. So she's trying her best to avoid this wave for coming. And the thing that she now figures, okay, I have to be aligned with this elf. I have to see what is going on, really. That might avert this disaster, but it might be the thing that actually brings this disaster, because Pharazôn is going to stay there unchecked.
I agree with you there completely. All right. Well, there are other elves in this story. One of them, particularly Elrond, who is hanging out with Celebrimbor. Wow, those dwarves work fast. They've already started. They've got that forge half built. But
they have until spring. It has to be fast.
Yeah, they've got this deadline that nobody knows about or nobody understands. But the dwarves are doing the deal. They've been working hard. It's half built. It's already huge. It's going to be the biggest forge I've ever seen in my entire life. For certain.
Are you going to see the forge?
Yeah, I mean, this certainly beats anything you see on the History Channel that they used to make swords or whatever. So this is a huge forge that's being built. But Celebrimbor is kind of melancholy. It's kind of weird. He's kind of feeling a little disturbed. Him and Elrond talk about Elrond's dad and how Elrond's dad said that had told Celebrimbor one time that they would be that Elrond would help him out in some way in the future. And it was kind of vague, kind of disappointing, but it definitely makes Elrond think of his father, and that kind of carries throughout the whole episode. But then Celebrimbor brings up that he thinks that Prince Durin's up to something, which I'm not quite sure how he came to that. He just feels a little suspicious of elves, I guess. Hence there's still some tensions between elves and dwarves. But Elrond is going to have to go and investigate. He has a delightful interview with Princess Disa, but he starts accusing her of, it's like, wait a minute, if he went to this place, why didn't he take this? And she kind of settles his I guess his doubts with what I like to call dwarf news, which is a lot like fake news. It's presented as fact, but it may not actually be fact. So she tells him about stews and everything, which nobody can verify. So therefore, he just has to accept her word. But he does follow her as she reports to her husband about Elrond sniffing around because Durin is allegedly not be findable. And yet here Disa is telling her husband about Elrond. and he sees it. I don't know if he's reading lips or if he's reading minds or what he's doing there.
I
But
thought he was listening, but
oh
apparently
well,
he was.
big ears. That's a possibility also.
Apparently he was reading lips, but I don't think because of the beard. How could he read it? So I thought, oh my God, he's using his superpower, like ears, superpowered ears, maybe.
Okay.
I don't know.
That's a possibility.
Subject to interpretation.
At any rate, he can figure it out what it is that Durin is up to something, and then he's up to something in the old mine below Mirror, which that's evidently a Mirror is a vein or something. Anyway, he goes
it's a lake, I think.
It's a
I think it's a lake.
A lake. Okay. Now wait a minute. Would that be the lake that Gandalf and the Balrog fall into in Peter Jackson's Two Towers?
Oh my God. I have no idea. Should we Google that? I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea either. I was just wondering how many lakes down there are there? I mean, you would suspect there would be a lot of water underground.
I think it is because that's where they established the kingdom, the first ring, because of this lake. So maybe it is.
Yeah. So he goes to investigate wherever it is that Durin is going, and he finds the secret door to activate it using a dwarf lyric, pounding and something about gold and all of this stuff. It was wonderful, and I love the way that the rock gave way and opened up, and all dwarf doors are cool in my eyes. Dwarf doors are cool. Once he gets into that room, he actually finds a vein of mithril. I don't think he understands what it is, but he sees it. And then all of a sudden, Durin comes in, accusing him of trying to steal what it is that they're mining. Elrond doesn't seem to know what it is. And after Durin makes him swear to the mountain not to share any of the information that he tells him, he then tells Elrond about this newly discovered ore. Their friendship is rekindled just in time for part of the mine to collapse. I love how they came up with the name Mithril, or I believe Durin called it something else. He called it some kind of stone or something like that, but translated to Elvish, then he kind of mistranslated it, and then Elrond comes up with the proper translation, which is Mithril. And then the mine starts to collapse, and Elrond tries to keep Durin from going in there, but Durin is all about his men. He wants to protect them, so he goes in to try and save them. Evidently, some dwarves are trapped. I think all of them got out alive in the end. Actually, I had written "kill their trap" before I say the conclusion of the scene, but because Disa performs this song or this ceremony to plead with the mountain to release the trapped, and Elrond gets to see that, and because he had gone after Durin, Disa then apologizes to Elrond for lying, because he probably, in finding Durin, had saved Durin's life, because otherwise Durin might have been trapped too. And it turns out that Durin returns saying that they got all of the trapped out alive. So that was fantastic. But he also is really mad because his father, the king, has now shut down the operation entirely. And in order to calm Durin down, Durin basically says he never wants to speak to his father again. And Elrond tells him, that holding these kind of grudges will only create regret once someone is gone. And he relates a story with his own father about how he wishes that he could have just one more conversation. It wouldn't matter whether his father criticized him or praised him, just to have that one last conversation, which hit me a little bit just because I've had that conversation in my own head about my dad. That scene ends with a little bit of humor, as Durin has evidently misrepresented the truth in regards to how Durin and Elrond met each other, saying that he had fended off two hill trolls for Elrond, but Elrond reports with the fact that it was actually him who saved Durin from 3. So they're always one-upping each other with their stories, and I still don't know which one to believe. I tend to believe Elrond over Durin, but that's just me. Maybe Durin's actually telling the truth. Durin then ends up going to his dad, and he apologizes for the mining and everything. But really, Dad's not all of that angry. You know, they have a good father-son moment themselves, and the Durin is very appreciative of that. But it's just a few moments later where they're having a conversation about how Durin has been invited to go with Elrond to see Linden, and evidently the king is still pretty suspicious of what the elves are up to, and therefore he wants Durin to go and spy on what's going on at Linden. I almost kind of believe that the king is sending Durin to spy on the wrong place. I mean, I know that the High King is at Linden or whatever, but the way that Celebrimbor doesn't seem to trust the dwarves, and the dwarves don't seem to trust the elves, maybe they should be looking at Eregion instead.
Oh, but Celebrimbor is going with them, right? To Linden.
Yeah. Okay.
They're going to discuss this like project. I really like when they interpret canon without, like, they change in a way that they still remain somewhat not faithful but truthful. So the thing with the Durins, that they are supposed to be reincarnations of the first Durin. So they're not supposed to exist in the same timeline like 2 Durins. No. So the way they kind of did, if I understood correctly, is about being crowned. So the way the father explains is that once his son will be crowned, like all the knowledge of both the mistakes and the successes of the previous Durins will pass down to the one crown. So that means like you're going to have like memories downloaded into you instead of like soul. Instead of being like each Durin is a reincarnation, basically you acquire each Durin's knowledge through this crowning, this coronation ceremony. So that's an interpretation of how the Durins would be reincarnations. No? Yeah. I mean, I know there are a lot of nitpicking about canon, but you can use canon to, not reinvent it, but to do something different.
Yeah.
And I think that lots of things, a lot of things, they are going parallel. They are going to arrive at the same destination, but explaining and filling the blanks. Like Mediel, she's Queen Regent. She never gets to be queen in the canon. Okay. So then they made her Queen Regent. So she's just sitting in for her father. She's not queen of her in her own right, basically. And with the Durins, this interpretation of what reincarnation would mean in the Durin line, I really like it. I don't understand. I understand people not enjoying it because it's not exactly what is they imagine or what is in canon. But I myself, I like it very much. I like to see the same story but told from a different point of view or in a different way, because then it's almost like a different story. It's like, people do adaptations of Shakespeare all the time. They always have to come up with something different.
Right.
Yeah. They don't do like word by word how they did in the Elizabethan time. So.
Sure.
What's worse?
All right. So this is where we ask a question and we play high school debate team, where the person who asks the question or gets asked the question gets to pick between the two choices, and then the person who asks the question has to argue the opposite. Priscilla, do you want to ask the first question or do you want me to?
I think you should start. Yeah.
I should start?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you this. What's worse between these two storylines? spying on your friend in order to gain your father's favor, that's a double F, permanently, as opposed to just in the moment, as it seems to be here,
Mm-hmm.
or tricking a whole race of people into believing that a tree has that many leaves. Because there's no way.
I think spying on your friend is
Why so?
worse.
Why so?
Well, like, first of all, your father is asking you to spy on your friend. So you always want to do what your father asks you to do, or do you have some rebellious strike in you? I don't know. Either way, a friend is a friend. You should trust your friends. If you cannot trust your friends, they should not be your friends to begin with. So I think this is worse. I think this is worse because somebody's using like a relationship with you to find information on someone else that you also care about. So you are, no matter what you're doing, you're going to be wrong. If you say no to your father, you're going to be wrong. If you spy on your friend, you're going to be wrong.
And it's a bad situation to be in, and it certainly violates a lot of principles. However, you're completely wrong, and here's why. When you have people who depend on you to be able to interpret things like leaves falling off trees, and you have a tree that, oh yes, it's a great tree, it's a white tree, but manages to spread its leaves all over the city, no matter how high above the city it is. No wind's going to carry all of those leaves that far. I can only imagine that people are standing on top of rooftops and they've got bags of white paper that's dressed like leaves and they're just throwing it around because there's no way that tree has that many leaves. And so this is obviously a sham. It's either to fool Muriel, it's to fool the people into believing that Muriel is right when she determines that they must help Galadriel. This is a sham. This is some kind of great grand conspiracy ploy that has occurred. And I don't know who employed it, but I just see people, I am positive that there are people who are holding bags of paper that's shaped like leaves, white paper, and just tossing it out from different building tops, from wherever, because there's no way that many leaves came off of that tree. That's what I'm saying. And if you're trying to fool a whole race of people, let's talk about the viewers. Do we as viewers actually believe that leaf could have that many trees? So that's what I'm saying there. That's why that's
you
worse.
mean that tree can have many leaves. You said that leaf can have many trees.
Oh, well, I get excited and I work my thinking. There's no way that leaf can have that many trees. That's exactly what I meant.
Yeah, sure.
At any rate, that's what we'll put on the poll. We'll ask you to verify for us. I don't think I remembered to put them on the poll last week, so we'll have to.
Oh my God!
I know. I'll have to put them up from last week. Also, we'll just have to put all of them up
because you forgot. I won.
It's natural
by default.
Maybe I put it up because I knew you would win anyway, or I didn't put it up because I knew you would win anyway. All right. So, do you have a question for me?
So what's worse, having your son kicked out from school because he cannot stop listening to weird voices in his head, or having your daughter going to dinner with the son of a would-be dictator?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a hard one to choose. I'm going to say that the daughter thing is worse simply because I believe that girl dads often have a difficulty seeing their daughters put in precarious positions. And I believe that this could possibly be a precarious position for Aarion in regards to Kemen. And I don't know that Kemen is actually intending any kind of harm coming to Aarion, but I can imagine Chancellor Pharazôn taking advantage of this in some way or another, whether Kemen is aware of it or not. So I believe that not only it's like, oh, she brought him home, and now we have to be nice to this guy too, and his dad's a dictator. That's got to be a tough position for Elendil. So I think that he's in a worse position with his daughter than he is with his son.
Yeah, okay. I would argue that the whole thing with the son is more like distressing, because the guy keeps listening to voices, like female voices. What does this mean? This means that he's like an addict, that he's having like the illusions, that he's having visions, that he's like, what does it mean? You don't know. But what you know is that it's spoiling all the trouble you went into raising this child from the beginning. This child cannot stop, he's trying to figure out a way to build his future, and he goes to this school. He's trying to become a sailor or whatever it is. And then these voices keep coming, and he, in the end, all that effort went to nothing because of voices in his head. And there is no medicine you can take. I don't think Numenor has invented like psychologists to help this guy. There is nobody you could talk to, because like the political situation in Numenor is such that having voices in your head might be something connected to elves or to Valar, and they are all against this in this part of the island. So it's dangerous. It's not only dangerous, it's concerning, and it's awful.
Well, I will give you points for that, but we will put it on the poll so that people can decide. Let's move on to our second part of a recap. We've got one storyline left here. Southlands.
Best place on Earth, on Middle-earth.
And future Mordor, Arondir gets to meet a celebrity. It's Benjen Stark. No, wait.
Yay!
It's Adar. We finally meet Adar after his name was spoken 17 billion times in the prior episode. But he's a nice evil elf. I mean, come on. He lovingly caresses dying orcs, and before he kills them for their failures. They never should have gotten hurt. That's why he kills them. That wasn't out of mercy. That was
it was mercy.
It was not mercy. It was absolutely not mercy, Priscilla.
Okay.
He did it to prove to the other orcs. It's like, see, when you let an elf hurt you like this, I'm going to finish the job. That's what he was trying to show. Because that's why he's so intimidating, even when he's talking about his childhood to Adar and the places that he visited, which evidently he visited Arondir's home. So despite all of this, and despite a warg's appetite, Adar does show a friendly side. He says, "Hey, Arondir, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let you go back to the old watchtower. All you have to do is give a message to the people who are there." And that, is, of course, is Bronwyn and her refugee group. Speaking of which, Bronwyn and her refugee group are having a food shortage problem.
Yeah, people forgot to bring their food with them.
What, they forgot to bring the food with them. They were in such a hurry to leave. They forgot the thing that they needed to survive. Good planning, Bronwyn. Way to go. So, or Waldrig, or any of them, actually. So Theo does come up with a plan. We'll just go into town. We'll get to what we left there, and I'll come back. And Bronwyn does not want him risking himself at all. But again, Theo is never shown to be much for following orders.
He's the worst. I hate him. I'm sorry.
He grabs his friend Rowan, and they go into town. They've got a wheelbarrow full of stuff already, but Theo wants to go into the tavern looking for food. Yeah, right. He probably just wants to get drunk. But while he's in there, finding one single bag of food, which wasn't worth the trip, an orc jumps him, and he pulls out his blade stump, his hilt, basically, and then he sticks it into his arm. And how he knew to do that, I don't know, but he sticks the back end of it into his arm.
Oh, the last episode, he realized you could do this trick.
Okay, well, yeah. At any rate, he does this, and the hilt becomes a completely restored sword in a way. Freaks the orc out. All of a sudden, the orc realizes, oh, this is what Adar has been sending us to look for. Theo runs. He ends up hiding in a well, which is, I'm thinking, man, that's not a very good place to hide. I guess it was the only place he had. But it nearly gets him discovered when the bucket comes back down and hits him in the head. which was a victorious moment for orcs and fans alike. But then, fortunately, as the orc hears him scream, he has the sense to be able to stick his head underwater and can hold his breath long enough for the orc to not see him. So he stays there until nightfall. He's cold and he's wet and he's stupid for sticking around all the way till nightfall, because your best chance is to try and get into sunlight to get away from these orcs. But nonetheless, he waits until it's completely dark where all of the orcs can come out and find him. And that's not good. He tries to escape. Theo's friend returns with the wheelbarrow of food. It takes him that long to get there because I don't know, he's an idiot and he gets lost. Not sure why it takes him
He's
that
a
long.
teenager boy. He probably saw something and
Yeah,
he lost
possibly
track of
so.
time.
He doesn't seem very enthusiastic about all of the dead animals or anything, which
And he's not really healthy. Did you see he has like all these things on his chest? Maybe he's dying from like evil poisoning.
Probably so, maybe so.
No? I
Um,
think there is something going on with this guy, other
mm,
than he being completely terrible. I
yeah.
don't know.
Well, what's the one thing that happens when somebody comes out of nowhere with a bunch of food to a place where nobody has any? Well, they all squabble over the food, of course. But Bronwyn doesn't care about any of that. She wants to know where Theo is. Yeah, he's still in the well and starting to make his way to escape after again after dark, after more orcs come out, and he
Yeah.
makes his way very conveniently. There's high grass, there's walls, there's all kinds of things he can hide behind. Nonetheless, he gets to a certain point until his luck runs out and an orc finds him. Then again, very conveniently, right as the orc is about to cut off his arm in order to get him to speak about where the blade is, Arondir, who has been let go by Adar, happens to show up at just the right time and relieves the orc of the head, just like uh, I guess this orc was going to relieve Theo of an arm. So, Arondir saves the day. Dun, dun, dun. They flee through the woods in slow motion because, it's more dramatic that way. And Arondir does some Legolas things like catching arrows and putting him back on his bow and shooting him back at the orcs. As they're continuing to fend off them and run through the woods, Bronwyn finds them because she's come looking for Theo. Arondir tells them to run while he continues to do Legolas-like heroics. And then, once again, conveniently, they emerge from the clearing, but the sun has now come up, and the sun that didn't seem to affect these orcs that much earlier today, even though, like I said, they did show the cloud shot to show that the orcs could be out in the open, but the shots were just too darn bright when Theo was hiding in a well for me to believe that the sun wouldn't be affecting them. But now, obviously, the sun will affect them because it's very convenient for the story where Arondir and Theo, who has a injured leg, and Bronwyn can all get away at their own pace. They don't longer have to run. They're free in the sun. Um, the sun does his job. It keeps them away. And then Arondir ends up having to deliver this message that Adar gave him that we didn't get at the beginning of the episode. But the message is very magnanimous. I mean, Adar will let everyone at the tower live, for crying out loud. But all they have to do is abandon their lands and swear fealty to him and to, I'm supposing, to probably Sauron as well. And Theo is recovering, and he finds that Waldrick, who not only was the barn owner that Theo stole the hilt from, but he's been loyal to darkness for a long time. He brings up that he knows about what the hilt is. He knows what it does. He knows what it represents. He also knows what the meteor means, and that means that Sauron basically is returning. And then we get a shot of an orc reporting to Adar that the blade has been found and that it is now in the tower. So they know where it's at. I want to say this real quick. The first shots that we ever got of that tower when Arondir was actually stationed there, did not get the same impression as I did this time around with people running around. It looked like to me like they were trying to make this set seem a lot like Helm's Deep in terms of the way it was laid out, the way the walls were and everything. When we first saw it, you just mainly paid attention to the tower sticking up, right?
Yeah.
But here, once you see the layout of the castle, it reminds me much more of a Helm's Deep kind of thing, and it's very well positioned. But is this tower possibly one of the towers that later on in the story that the men and the elves use to look, since we now know that the Southlands is probably going to end up being Mordor. This isn't one of the towers that we already know from one of the trilogy stories, is it? Something that overlooks Mordor?
I think it's already Mordor.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I
think it's already Mordor.
Yeah,
because Browy said like that there was like the other people from other villages were coming there.
Yeah.
And they are not exactly, they are very close to Mount Doom. Actually.
Are they very close to Mount Doom? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it
might be one of those towers that we see, as you say. But I have the impression that it's not like in the border, it's already in Mordor. Okay. That's the impression I have.
Well, there was a tower or two that we did see in Mordor proper, like the one that Frodo was brought to.
I think it is this one. I think it would be this one. If I would have to guess, I would think it's this one.
Okay. All right. Well, that makes sense. And I can't remember the name of it proper. I'm
pretty sure it's in Mordor. I'm pretty sure it's in Mordor already because Adar wants that lands for himself. What I'm not sure if it's Adar is trying to establish himself as a new Dark Lord because Sauron has not returned, or if he's like in league with Sauron, if he's like the Sauron's tenant, that he's doing this everything to be like in accordance to Sauron's wishes, because like this strange guy Valdreg,
yeah,
which is also something that we see in the books. Like Morgoth had spies, he had people infiltrated in like different places, and Sauron keeps with this tradition too. So, and he name checks Sauron. He's waiting for Sauron to return. But I don't think Adar mentioned Sauron, did he?
Adar did not really mention Sauron, and nor was it present in Arondir's message. Because he said pledge fealty to him. I just was under the impression that it was that also meant pledging fealty to Sauron. But
we don't know.
It may not be. You're correct. It could just be that Adar is thinking, well, I'm gonna, there's a power vacuum here. I'm gonna soak it up.
He mentioned that he's not quite a god yet.
Right.
Sauron is a Maya, so he would be in this position of like of being a creature, one of the Ainu that witnessed the beginning of time.
Okay.
So he would be considered a god, I think. And Ada is an elf.
Right.
He's a creature.
Right. Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's something to ponder for sure. What else about this particular storyline do you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, like you spoke a lot about the contrivances of the coincidences, like the plot armor, but I feel that this is like, I cannot even complain about this much because this is so prevalent in fantasy. Like people that should not survive, like this sort of very convenient way out. People that were missing.
Tolkien was a terrible writer.
Who? Tolkien.
Well, he had those kind of coincidences in his stuff. So
because it's the stuff of fantasy. It's like Like
Well, all fantasy writers are terrible writers, and they don't adjust to reality in any way, shape, or form.
But fantasy is the opposite of reality, right?
Okay.
The rules are different. So if you want to apply what you want to observe, it's like the rules in that world. And one thing that I learned, Matt, is that there are people out there that are very lucky. I'm not one of them, but I witnessed a lot. You know, people are running late, then a job interview is like postponed. You know, so they are not late anymore, or they miss a bus. The bus was in an accident, so they don't break their leg or they don't die. So I know this kind of people. They exist, and I'm not one of them, and I'm really sad about it. I cannot tell you, I spent years in my life crying about not being one of those people. I didn't understand why I was not chosen to be one of those people, but maybe Theo is one of those people, Matt. That's why I hate him so much. Maybe.
There's where the resentment comes from, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, honestly, this also spoil friendships. I hate people that are very lucky. I don't like them.
Yeah. Well, I won the lottery last week. $2.
Really? Sorry.
I probably spent about 10 in prior drawings before I won 2. So I'm still in the hole.
Yeah.
At any rate, is there anything else about this storyline? Or are we ready to move on to what's worse?
Let's move on. What's worse? Right. And you have both, no?
I wrote both, but if you have a question of your own, then we can ask that.
No, you can go.
What's worse?
Well, I'm going to ask this question. What's worse? Being told to send a message of invitation that's a death sentence either way, or being told about the place that you grew up in a very creepy way by a very creepy elf?
I think being told about the place you grew up in a creepy way by a creepy elf. I mean, elves are not supposed to be creepy. That's the first.
Yeah.
So it adds to your sense of unease that there's a creepy elf talking to you, let alone talking about the place you were born, the place you grew up, like he knew you. What does this elf wants with you? He wants to be closer to you. He wants to scare you. He wants you to just answer his questions about. He's just curious. It gets really confusing very fast, and I don't like being confused. Therefore, I think it's the worst.
Okay. Well, I have to default to the other one, saying being told to send a message of invitation that's really a death sentence either way, because either you're serving a dark lord or you're dead. So doesn't seem like much of a possibility there. But I want to approach this simply by attacking your position, because I think that I think that I can shoot holes in everything that you just said. Here's a guy who is longingly talking about Arondir's place where he grew up. He's being very delicate with his memories. He's sharing. He's communicating. He's not being creepy at all. Okay, maybe creepy, but he's just trying to make a friend. You know, if you want somebody to deliver a message of death for you, you have to make that person your friend so that they will do it. You can do so by letting them go, of course. And that's one thing that you can do. You can do so by making sure that the warg is locked up, as he did. And so I don't think that there's anything wrong with trying to find a sense of commonality with your fellow elf in regards to a place that elf used to call home. So that's why, regardless, you need to make sure that the talking of this story is better than the message, because the message itself has to be delivered. And the only way you're going to guarantee that it gets delivered is if you find some kind of commonality and gain the trust of Arondir so that he will in fact deliver the message, because he could have let Arondir go, and Arondir could have just not told the message at all. So I suppose in that way that the message is worse, simply because you have to do so many things better in order to get that message delivered. That logic sucks, ladies and gentlemen, but you can vote on the polls.
Matt, it was terrible. I'm sorry. I already predicted I will win
She has
this.
predicted that she will win. I have predicted that she will win too. Vote on all the polls, all 4 of the What's Worse questions this week, and the What's Worse questions from last week. I'll put those up too because I forgot to. So you can defeat me like up to 8 times this week.
No, I think you should just let it go. I won last week. That's all.
Just chalk it up to you winning.
Yeah.
I'm not quite that unstubborn. I have to at least put it up on the poll, and somebody has to prove it to me that you won. It'll also prove that more people are listening to our episodes, because they'll have to go back to the prior episode to re-listen to our wonderful arguments.
I think my arguments last episode were the worst possibly arguments I've already used.
Yeah. I'd just like to add a thought of Harfoot Haters here.
Harfoot Haters.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I hate them. They didn't show up. What kind of no-shows are Harfoot Haters?
So you hate when they are there, and you hate when they don't show up.
Well,
they can never be right with you.
If they're not there, I can't hate on them, but I can hate on them because they didn't show up.
I understand.
Yes, absolutely. So I hate the Harfoots not being there. I did miss them. How about you? Did you miss the Harfoots, or did you say, no, it was nice to get a break?
I mean, I miss them, but I didn't miss them, if it makes sense. Like, I would like to see their lovely faces and to learn more about their terrible ways of their community. But I think the episode was well developed the way it was developed, and they wouldn't feel connected, like thematically. It wouldn't make sense to put them there. So I'm happy that they're traveling. I'm sure that it's boring traveling with the Harfoot, and that's why we don't see. I'm sure whatever it is where they are going, maybe next episode we are going to see them coming closer to the destination.
One of the reasons that I'm interested in them is because I'm still interested so much in the stranger. And that's one of the things that I missed about them. But something that I think we both can agree that we don't miss is Theo's, tendencies, his nature, the inability to just say yes, mother, put his head down and walk away.
He's terrible.
He is a terrible, terrible kid. But are his tendencies truly dark, do you think? Or is the blade, has the blade now affected him to the point where no matter what she says, he's just going to go the opposite direction? Because she seems to make a lot of sense. He never does.
I think the blade is affecting a little bit of his personality. Like, he sounded a little bit more aggressive with his friend, his lovely friend. Something that he wasn't before. And honestly, I have to say, when they went to the barn, I thought they were like teenage lovers, but Theo just wanted to play with a sword, so that got me confused about what Theo really is in terms of like what kind of teenager is. And I decided that he's just the annoying type. He doesn't really have other interests other than that sword. It's all that he can think of.
Okay.
And now what really lends this home to me is that now that he already was told that this sword belongs, or it's some sort of connected to Sauron, he knows what Sauron is. The guy Valdek, he makes sure to tell Theo exactly the stakes, and what this sword is and what it does. He still didn't give up. So there is the sort of choice that is connected through like the Tolkien's works. There's lots about friendship. It's a lot about friendship, the value of friendship, and also choices. And I think Theo's already made his choice. Of course, he's young. Of course, he doesn't know anything. But I mean, it's an evil sword, dude.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
It's not.
yeah, and he's not going to give it up.
Of course not.
Yeah.
He's going to put everybody in danger there because the orcs are looking after that sword.
Yeah, exactly.
So he will keep, like, his mother doesn't know why the orcs are being, she just imagines that because they want to take their land away. But no, it's because Theo has
if
the sword.
I'm Bronwyn, if I'm this kid's mother, and if I want to believe that he's possibly, I can see no evil because he's my boy, right?
Yeah.
Can she not argue instead that by making sure that he keeps the sword, he has already saved humanity because those orcs would have found it already? No, he's delayed the orcs from getting this blade. We know what the orcs are going to do, bad things if they get this blade and give it to Adar.
What? It's not about the ring. The blade is not the ring. We don't know what the blade does and why they want, right?
Well, if the orcs want it, I have to assume it does bad things. That's all I'm saying. And so by Theo keeping it, he is keeping the orcs from doing evil things. That's all.
Maybe it's just because Sauron has like a emotional connection to the sword. It was a gift. It was a gift somebody gave him.
This was the second sword that Morgoth gave me. I loved this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe that's it.
Okay. Well, I mean, is Bronwyn ever going to see the light then? Is she going to say, this kid's just no bad?
I think she's going to die to defend this terrible kid.
As she should, because he's saving humanity by holding on to that sword.
No, I mean, we already had telegraphed that her relationship with Arondir will go nowhere. And I think it will go nowhere because she has this terrible son.
Oh, okay. All right. There you go.
I'm also like a little bit concerned because, the series is supposed that there is a time compression of 200 years, 250 years. Obviously, Bronwyn cannot live that long, but if Theo becomes one of the Dark Lord assistants, like one of the ring wraiths, one of the Nazgul, then this means that Theo is going to stick around to this series, and I'm kind of hoping that he doesn't. So,
wow, you want to kill a kid? Really? You want a kid gone?
For the good of the series, I think Theo is bringing them down.
Oh, what kind of a podcast has this become? We're killing kids now.
It's something that they are doing very well in the series. They are doing some things that I'm still not sure, which I already said, and I'm waiting for the payoffs. But there are things that they are very successful. Like Theo is like one of those surly teenagers that give the teenagers a bad name, So they are making this. They're doing this well, I think.
That's the most realistic part of the whole story.
Yeah.
There's always a surly son, a double S. We've been talking a lot about swords, but let's talk about another sword, because last week, we saw Elendil be handed this sword in Numenor, and I was comparing pommels and everything. But I see in the notes here, you've posed the question, have we seen Narsil, which is the sword that ends up being wielded by Isildur that ends up separating Sauron from the ring or hurting Sauron to the point where he reverts into a little eyeball at the top of a tower by the time we get him into the Lord of the Rings. So why did you pose this question this time around?
Oh, because you were very interested last episode about the sword that Miriel gives to Elendil. You were wondering if it was Narsil, and we were talking about how they cannot exactly replicate what we saw in the trilogy, with Peter Jackson's movies for legal reasons. So they have to go for an approximation, like they have to go take the visuals of the movie as a basis, but make something different. And you were saying, oh, but like the hilt is completely different. There is a big difference there. It's not even close. So now that we see one that actually looks more like it. So I thought about you immediately. I was like, oh, there it is.
Wait a minute. Which sword is this now that we saw?
Narsil. The sword that we saw last episode.
Well, the last episode, but what about this episode? What did we see this episode?
We saw in the tower when Galadriel and Miriel are going to see the Palantir.
Okay.
They're like there's a couple of things like artifacts from the first age. It could be that we saw like the helm of the like this dragon helm. We could see apparently there is like a hammer too that is connected to Tuor, which is another figure. And there was this sword that looked like Narsil, and Galadriel was very. There is this shot with Galadriel and the sword on her back here on her side.
Okay.
And it looked more like Narsil.
It looked more like the Narsil from the show.
And you didn't see it.
I didn't see it. I apologize. I've only watched the episode once.
So you go back and see it, and then you tell me.
Okay. So perhaps. Okay. So now you're saying that Narsil is now in the hands of Galadriel?
No. I said that it was in display.
When she was in the tower. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if it is Narsil that's in the tower, then I certainly hope somebody takes it with them to Linden or wherever, because if Muriel's vision ever comes true with the tidal wave, it's going to be at the bottom of the ocean.
Well, I'm pretty sure this is not going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure somebody will take it.
I suppose if Isildur has it. Although Isildur,
Isildur Elendil, his father should have before.
His father should have it before. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Are you ready to get to some feedback that we've got here?
Yeah. Why not?
Okay.
Oi, can we get the feedback out of the monitors, please?
From the boss, Bubba, writes his thoughts in on this episode. Love the episode. 8 double T's out of 10.
Double T's?
Yeah, terrible Theo. So that's right along with you. Showing Adar for even just a couple of minutes doing evil things, he becomes a compelling villain. I hate Theo. Evidently everybody does except me, who I realize is saving humanity. I kind of love to hate Theo. Oh, you do like to hate kid hater. Bubba, you're a kid hater. Yet Theo surrounded by orcs is so much more compelling and tense and dangerous than the scenes of elves actually being killed by orcs in episode 3. Interesting. I laughed at some Elrond, Durin, Disa interactions. The political plays by Pharazôn is intriguing. Even the flirting by Kemen and Aron, which I wouldn't care about. Now I think, oh man, these suckers are going to get killed by a tidal wave. Okay, thanks, Bubba. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Bubba.
Now, I guess I'm a little more invested in the Kemen and Aron relationship because I'm just seeing conspiracies everywhere. But
to be honest, I'm not invested.
Yeah, I'm looking for some reason to say, well, why do we care about that? And Bubba, I'm sorry, I don't think it's just about the fact that they could be soaked or swept away by a tidal wave, but we'll see what goes on there. Any thoughts about Bubba's comments?
Well, amazing as usual, Bubba. Thank you for commenting, and we hope that we are going to help you pay for your house. So
yeah.
Let the money keep coming for Baba.
Folks, we need
That's
you to hit
great.
that like button down there. If you're watching
Yeah.
these on the Double P Media YouTube, hit that like button. Leave comments so that we can share them with our audience as well, so that Bubba can ring in the dough as well. And notice how well Priscilla sucked up to him too. That's great. Keep us on this channel, Priscilla, by sucking up to him by saying his thoughts were fantastic.
I'm Netflix is begging us to come to their like streaming service, to the platform. So Bubba better keep us.
Yeah,
we are in demand.
In demand, we are. We did get some comments from YouTube also. Rally Beard, and this was a fun little way to phrase this, like the old saying about the rings themselves. It began with the forging of the great films. Threads were given by Tolkien, wisest and fairest of them all. The rights were then given to Jackson, a great miner and craftsman of the Mountain of Lore. And 9 hours were gifted to the race of men who above else desired quality. But they were all of them deceived, for another show was made. In the land of Amazon, in the fires of Mount Prime, the Dark Lord Bezos forged a secret master flop. Ooh. And into this show he poured his money, his greed, and his will to dominate all film. One show to ruin them all. I love that, Rally Beard. That was fun. A fun way to put it. Obviously, you don't like the show. I asked Rally Beard what they thought about it, and Rally Beard responded by saying, "I'm sure it will get better. Maybe that's his master plan. Get the internet a buzz for the first few episodes, and then when the free month runs out, the show quality gets better, and people will subscribe to Prime." Very good, Rally. Evidently, Rally is not very good. High on the show right now.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, Prime is not. It's not about the series or like subscribers for the streaming service. Prime is actually Amazon Prime Video is actually a way of getting people into the Amazon Prime subscription program for delivery.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
it's just an extra thing. So
there you go. Anything else regarding this episode before we close it out?
Very good. I like it very much. The thing that you want most from a TV show is to have fun, is to be engaged, and to be in community with others. And now that like the series is like it's already half of the first season, so we are seeing exactly where the plot is going now. There is less things to be filled up. Like it's still a lot of like world building to cover, but it's not in any way, shape, or form this huge information dumps before.
Right.
So I am enjoying. I know a lot of people are enjoying too, and it's okay that a lot of people are not enjoying too. Like there are like thousands of shows for people to choose.
Right.
Out there. So just find one series that you like and stick with it.
Or find 20 that you don't like and try and cover them like I do. Thanks for listening to Bustin' Blockbusters. This is Matt. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Part of Double P Media, doublepmedia.com.